Reuters reports that the U.S. Navy will drop aerospace and defense giant Lockheed Martin from the F/A-XX competition. The program seeks to develop a replacement for Boeing's F/A-18E F Super Hornet. Citing sources familiar with the decision, the report claims that the Navy will move forward with designs from aerospace rivals Boeing and Northrop Grumman. Neither Lockheed Martin nor the U.S. Navy have commented on the decision. However, sources told the news agency that Lockheed Martin's bid failed to meet the criteria necessary to move forward. The Navy has also reportedly waited to make a formal announcement about the program until the Navy Secretary has been confirmed. President Donald Trump's nominee John Phelan attended a congressional hearing last month, but he may be the latest nominee to face an uphill battle with lawmakers. Phelan has no military experience, but has touted his management skills, which he said would help address ongoing ship delays, cost overruns and maintenance issues. No confirmation vote is currently scheduled. In written comments to the Senate Armed Services Committee, Phelan explained his thinking on the program. The next generation F/A-XX aircraft, which offers significant advances in range and operational capacity in contested environments, is intended to enable carrier strike groups to outpace adversaries while maintaining naval air dominance. He added, "I also understand that the Navy, Marine Corps, and Air Force are working closely together to ensure interoperability through shared enabling technologies such as autonomy, mission systems, and communications architecture. This collaborative approach, which includes manned and unmanned platforms, including the Collaborative Combat Aircraft (CCA), will maximize operational effectiveness and flexibility across the service. In my view, aligning technology development and operational requirements will ensure the service is ready to fully utilize the next generation of unmanned systems, ultimately enhancing long-range mission capability and effectiveness." Navy officials have previously said a contract could be awarded for the F/A-XX later this year. The contract is likely to include multiple contractors with competing designs as the Navy continues to consider its options. At this point, it appears that Boeing and Northrop Grumman are the finalists. Pratt & Whitney and OEM GE Aerospace are also said to be in the running to secure the F/A-XX engine contract. Lockheed Martin's exit from the race came as a surprise to many, given that the company produces the fifth-generation F-35 Lightning II in carrier-based configuration, F-35C, which is used exclusively by the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps, and the F-35B, a short vertical takeoff and landing (STOVL) variant operated by the U.S. Marine Corps from Navy amphibious assault ships. Northrop's last production fighter was the F-5 Tiger, which was used by the U.S. Navy during the Cold War, and continues to use the fighter in adversary squadrons to simulate enemy aircraft and air combat training, the company notes on its website. However, Northrop is best known for its part in the U.S. Air Force's Advanced Tactical Fighter (ATF) program, in which its YF-23 competed against the Lockheed YF-22. Ultimately, the YF-22 won, leading the Air Force to adopt the Lockheed Martin F-22 Raptor as its air superiority fighter. The program was also notorious for its high costs and changing geopolitical circumstances. Northrop later produced the B-2 Spirit, a stealth bomber with flying wings, while Northrop Grumman is currently building its replacement, the B-21 Raider, which is due to enter service later this year. 2 decades before its merger with Northrop in 1994, Grumman also produced the famous F-14 Tomcat, seen in the original Top Gun, the aircraft that was replaced by the F/A-18 at the end of the Cold War. The U.S. Navy is moving forward with its plans for a sixth-generation fighter jet, even as Trump advisor and close ally of tech billionaire Elon Musk publicly derided the F-35 last year, saying only fools would build a manned fighter jet. The Air Force has already axed its next-generation air dominance (NGAD) program, citing costs and concerns that technology is advancing so quickly that any aircraft will become obsolete before it can be produced in significant numbers. There is still speculation that the NGAD program could be revived, and it is possible that Lockheed Martin will focus its efforts in that direction, especially since Northrop Grumman voluntarily withdrew from it last year, while leaving the door open to rejoining at a later date. A source familiar with the program told Breaking Defense that Lockheed submitted a bid for the next-generation fighter effort, but its proposal did not meet the Navy's criteria, leaving Boeing and Northrop Grumman as the remaining contenders. AFA War 2025, Lockheed Martin is no longer in the running for the Navy's sixth-generation fighter jet program, known as Next Generation Air Dominance or FAXX, Breaking Defense has learned. A source familiar with the program told Breaking Defense that Lockheed submitted a bid to the Navy, but its proposal did not meet the established criteria. The company is now no longer pursuing the bid. The Navy previously told Breaking Defense in November that it was evaluating proposals, but it was unclear when Lockheed dropped out of the race. The result is a fierce competition between Northrop Grumman and Boeing to replace the aging F/A-18 and E-A-18 with a new air superiority fighter. At stake for Northrop is its first fighter contract since the F-14 Tomcat, made famous by its appearance in the original Top Gun movie. At stake for Boeing is the future of its fighter division, which has seen a major investment in its St. Louis facility in a bid to win the U.S. military's sixth-generation contract. Lockheed referred requests for comment to the Navy, which declined to comment. Lockheed, which dominates the fifth-generation fighter market with the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter and the F-22 Raptor, still has a shot at building a sixth-generation jet through a separate Air Force fighter competition, also known as Next Generation Air Dominance, in which it competes with Boeing. The FAXX program is the Navy's most prestigious aircraft competition in 2 decades, but the Navy has kept its efforts secret. Little is known about the aircraft's capabilities or requirements, other than that it will be built to complement the F-35 aboard Air Force warships and will have a different airframe and engines than the Air Force's sixth-generation fighter. John Phelan, the Trump administration's pick to be the next Navy Secretary, characterized the FAXX as a next-generation aircraft, offering significant advances in range and operational capacity in contested environments, in written answers to questions from lawmakers released last week. The program is intended to enable carrier strike groups to outmaneuver adversaries while maintaining naval air dominance, and will involve collaboration with the Air Force and Marine Corps on autonomy, mission systems, communications architecture, and autonomous combat drones, he wrote PDF. In its fiscal 2025 budget request, the Navy deferred about $1 billion in research and development funding that had been slated for the FAXX to fund other readiness priorities while keeping the service's budget within the constraints of the Fiscal Responsibility Act. "We are absolutely committed to the capacity and lethality of the carrier wing," Rear Admiral Ben Reynolds, the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Budget, told reporters in March 2024. "The capacity and firepower of the air wing is far greater than anything the Defense Department has." Navy officials have publicly remained committed to awarding the FAXX contract this year, unlike the Air Force, which put the NGAD program on hold last year while it assessed the program. The Air Force conducted an internal analysis last year that supported the development and fielding of a manned sixth-generation fighter, but officials deferred a decision on whether to move forward with the program to the Trump administration. Stephen Feinberg, the nominee for Deputy Defense Secretary, told the Senate Armed Services Committee last week that a decision on the Air Force program could come from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth or President Donald Trump. The U.S. Navy's sixth-generation fighter program, the FAXX, is progressing toward potential service in the 2030s, possibly preceding the U.S. Air Force's delayed Next Generation Air Dominance (NGAD) program. Designed to replace the F/A-18E, F Super Hornet and Growler airframes, the FAXX will feature advanced sensors, range and stealth capabilities, with integration of unmanned platforms such as the Collaborative Combat Aircraft (CCA). However, budgetary challenges could pose a threat, as seen with the Air Force's NGAD, which was temporarily suspended due to its high cost. With geopolitical tensions rising, the success of the FAXX is critical to maintaining U.S. air dominance. The Navy's FAXX sixth-generation fighter could outpace the Air Force's NGAD program. The U.S. Navy could achieve its sixth-generation fighter program ahead of the Air Force's parallel goal. According to the service, the upcoming FAXX platform could come into being in the 2030s. If all goes according to plan, the new fighter jet, packed with cutting-edge technology and capabilities, will enter service before the Air Force's temporarily deferred Next Generation Air Dominance (NGAD) airframe. As Chief of Naval Operations Admiral Lisa Franchetti explained, the Navy expects the new fighter jet to feature advanced sensors, advanced lethality, advanced range, and the ability to integrate with manned and unmanned capabilities simultaneously. The announcement represents progress for the Navy's new program, especially after a major funding setback appeared to stall its success last spring. While the Air Force is still grappling with budget deficits in many areas, its prioritization of the F/A-XX program comes at a crucial time when geopolitical tensions are rising around the world. What we know about the F/A-XX. More than a decade ago, the Navy first outlined its intention to seek a replacement carrier-launched fighter jet to replace its aging F/A-18E, F Super Hornet and Growler airframes. The new jet is conceptualized to fly alongside the F-35C Lightning II and UCLASS drones. Perhaps most importantly, the F/A-XX will be designed to operate in an anti-access, area denial environment to more effectively thwart the People's Republic of China's growing arsenal of advanced weapons systems. To accomplish this, the upcoming airframe is expected to be equipped with all of the latest stealth features, including the network adaptability demonstrated by the F-35 platform. Major manufacturers Boeing, Lockheed Martin, and Northrop Grumman have all announced that they are vying for the aircraft's design contract. Additionally, Pratt & Whitney and OEM GE Aerospace have been revealed to be vying for the F/A-XX engine contract. Will budget concerns finally derail the sixth-generation program? While many details surrounding the F/A-XX program remain highly classified, the Air Force has revealed that the fighter will be designed to operate alongside unmanned platforms including the Collaborative Combat Aircraft (CCA). Like the Air Force's NGAD platform, the Navy's fighters will fly alongside these loyal, drone wingmen, to lower the overall cost of the program. However, the Air Force may need to lower costs in other areas to ensure it doesn't require the budget that is currently hampering the Air Force's NGAD program. F/A-XX Stealth Fighter. One of the main factors driving the NGAD pause is its overall price, according to the Air Force and Space Force. Air Force Secretary Frank Kendall paused the NGAD this summer after indicating that the service would only return to service if the price dropped nearly 50%, from about $200 million to $100 million. Tensions between Beijing and Washington in the South Pacific continue to escalate, requiring the arrival of next-generation air technology in the near future for security reasons. While the NGAD is paused, the Navy's F/A-XX program must certainly be prioritized to ensure that China and other adversaries don't acquire sixth-generation technology before the U.S. does. The U.S. Navy expects its sixth-generation fighter jet to enter service in the 2030s, bringing with it the ability to operate alongside drones and fly missions at long ranges, capabilities seen as crucial for any future conflict with China. The Navy's ambition, if realized, would mean it could introduce a next-generation manned fighter before the U.S. Air Force, which is currently re-examining its requirements for a new stealth fighter, with the program temporarily suspended. The Navy is currently late in the process of sourcing who will build the next-generation fighter jet, and that decision could come soon. Like the Air Force, the Navy is working on its own sixth-generation fighter as part of a program called the Next Generation Air Dominance (NGAD). The Navy's manned fighter is often referred to as the F/A-XX. The Navy is engaged in direct collaboration with the Air Force program, and both initiatives place manned fighters at the heart of a broader system of systems that will also include Advanced Collaborative Combat Aircraft (CCA) drones. But it's increasingly apparent that the programs may be headed in different directions, at least as far as the current timelines are concerned. The U.S. Navy's sixth-generation fighter jet will have advanced sensors, advanced lethality, advanced range, and be able to integrate with manned and unmanned capabilities simultaneously, according to Chief of Naval Operations (CNO) Admiral Lisa Franchetti, quoted in an article by Air and Space Forces magazine. That's consistent with what we've previously learned about the initiative. Given what we know about the two services sharing some technology and even control capabilities for CCA drones, it's not surprising that Franchetti mentioned manned-unmanned integration. That's one of the things, as we learn from the Air Force and the work that they're doing, to integrate that with what we know we need to be able to do, she added. The mention of range is also interesting. Facing the prospect of a potential future war in the Pacific with China and facing increasingly advanced and longer-range air defenses, as well as the very long distances involved in such a theater, long range has always been viewed as one of the core capabilities of the Air Force's NGAD fighter. That requirement is likely now being reassessed, though the Navy remains committed to it, Franchetti said. Enabling a carrier air wing to be able to hit a relevant target set and at significant frequency while keeping the carrier itself at a safe distance from other anti-ship and anti-access capabilities is a glaring problem for the USN. Dramatically increasing the unrefueled combat radius of at least some of its fighters, which would be paired with CCAs of similar endurance, would go a long way toward solving this problem. The CNO added that it plans to sign the contract in time for the new fighter to enter service in the 2030s. That's the same kind of timeline anticipated for the Air Force's new stealth fighter, but the current situation could push that date even further to the right. Exactly how the Air Force's NGAD fighter jet will be transformed remains unclear at this point, and elements of its design have always been a closely guarded secret. As it stands, however, the Air Force's NGAD program is under intense review, and there could be significant revisions to better reflect what the Air Force wants, or can afford, from its next fighter. Most of all, the situation is driven by the realization that the highly advanced aircraft could cost 3 times as much as a new F-35, more than $300 million apiece. The Air Force is now eyeing a much cheaper aircraft, priced roughly the same as an F-35 or F-15X, at around $90 million to $100 million each. The Navy's F/A-XX is also not without its financial woes. As we reported last summer, the program's budget, already set to be cut, could be cut even more severely in the next fiscal year. The Senate is proposing to provide nearly 90% less funding than requested to support continued work on a new carrier-based fighter. Black money also plays a role in programs like this. Franchetti did not appear to mention the financial woes, but the fact that he did say the service expects the aircraft to enter service in the 2030s makes it clear that the program remains a top priority. However, it's questionable how feasible that goal is, and 2030s is a broad window to start. Realistically or not, the Navy will first have to choose between Boeing, Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman, which are currently competing to provide the F/A-XX. Franchetti said the Navy is currently in the process of deciding which design to use. Meanwhile, it is understood that only Boeing and Lockheed Martin are in the running for the USAF's manned NGAD fighter, while Northrop Grumman has dropped out of the race to focus on the Navy's program. It has always been thought likely that the F/A-XX would share its engines with the Air Force's NGAD, using technology developed under the Next Generation Adaptive Propulsion (NGAP) program. With that in mind, it is possible that the Air Force's reduced NGAP program objectives, along with reduced performance targets, could have a knock-on effect on the Navy's NGAD fighter capabilities. Whether the Navy would accept reduced performance on its fighter if it meant saving significant money, either in development costs or eventual production outlays, remains to be seen. In addition to the cost factors now influencing decisions about the future of the Air Force's NGAD program, there are increasing signs that the Air Force is also reconsidering whether the manned fighter concept, as it has been understood until now, is truly the best one to meet emerging threats. However, to the best of our knowledge, the Navy still expects the F/A-XX and its accompanying drones to replace the F/A-18E, F Super Hornet multirole fighters and EA-18G Growler electronic attack jets, all of which are part of a carrier air wing overhaul that could eventually feature as many as 2/3 of the aircraft. Interestingly, however, Franchetti said that, while it is important that the Navy and Air Force NGAD programs are aligned to some degree, it is not the most important factor in the Navy's F/A-XX effort. The effort to distance the F/A-XX from the current uncertainty surrounding the Air Force's NGAD is perhaps understandable, given the hiatus on the latter program. The Navy should have a better idea of how the Air Force's potential NGAD overhaul affects its program of the same name once the aviation branch makes a decision about the path it wants to take for its 6th-generation fighter initiative. That decision will come in the next few months. The Air Force has reiterated that it is committed to having a manned stealth fighter at the heart of the broader NGAD initiative and that it will have human pilots to start, though an optional manned version may eventually be developed as well. I absolutely believe we will still be doing a manned 6th-generation aircraft, Air Force Secretary Frank Kendall said in July of this year. Even if the Air Force's NGAD effort ultimately takes a very different approach to meeting future air combat requirements, that doesn't mean the Navy won't be able to benefit from technologies and concepts that come out of that program or are run collaboratively. I think more broadly, as all the services work together to make sure that they have complementary capabilities, where can we learn from each other? Franchetti asked. Where can we leverage those learnings so that you can be more common going forward? While the Air Force's NGAD initiative has been characterized by its secrecy, the Navy's comparable sixth-generation fighter program has been, if anything, even more in the shadows. It remains to be seen how much the pause in the Air Force program will impact the F/A-XX, but the release of any new details about the program at this critical stage is interesting, to say the least.